Folks at home, welcome back to the 5-acre pond build, and if you missed the previous videos in this series, I'll put a link down in the description below. So we're going to roll some drone clips to show you how much the pond has filled up over the last couple of months. And we're finally ready to stock the pond with bait. We just placed an order with the hatchery. They're going to be bringing the bluegills and fathead minnows first. The threadfin shad will come in the spring, and then the bass will come around May. So those bluegills should be getting here in the next week or two as soon as they can get a truck down our way. And they recommend liming the pond to get the alkalinity and hardness up. So you typically lime it at around 5 tons per acre. So we're going to get one dump truck load of 25 tons of lime. And that can be before or after the fish are stocked. Alright folks, time to take a look at the pond and see what all has changed. Water levels have definitely coming up in the last week. Still love that tree right there, it's one of my favorites. And this may be the last week we get to see the oak throne. It is almost fully submerged. And you can see the drain pipe back there. I'm thinking we still have somewhere around 1.5 feet to go. Island's looking good, water all around it. And most of those other structures I put in are completely underwater, except for the ones back up there in the shallow end. And we almost have water to the last spot on the pond, Clyde's Cove. That should be filling in this week. So now that all the underwater lights have been completely submerged, I'm going to run 120 volts to the power panel, and we should be getting some night shots out here around the dock here in an upcoming week or two. So one of my biggest objectives for today is getting winter grass to grow around the pond. We planted winter rye almost 35 days ago, but because we haven't had rain in so long, I'm having to water it with this sprinkler system coming out of the underground well. And so right here around the duck house, which we will be giving you an important update on them later in the video, but right here in this area, all the grass is looking great. The problem is I can't get the well water to go down the length of the dam and all the way over there on the back side. All the seeds already there in place, all we need is water, and luckily we have a pond full of it. So I think I found a good solution. I went out and got this small pump, and I'm going to use it to pump water out of the pond to a sprinkler head, and if it works, we'll end up running an entire line of sprinklers down the pond dam. But here's my next problem. I haven't ran electricity to the island yet, so I'm not going to be able to run that pump to water that grass. But I definitely don't want the island to look like that all winter, so I had to come up with a solution, and that's where this guy comes into play. So a lot of you have seen those battery backpacks that help charge your phones, and this is basically a beefed up one of those. So this is a pretty cool device. It's got the built-in car socket, a flashlight that you're not going to be able to see because it's daylight, 3 USB chargers for the phones, but most importantly the 2 AC outlets. Another really cool thing about it, you can hook it up and charge it through a solar panel. And the maximum output on those AC plugs is 200 watts. So I went out and got that small pump. We're about to get everything hooked up. Go ahead and give it a test run right out here and see if we can water the pond dam. Alright, so we got the inlet here, the outlet here. So I'm going to hook the sump hose up to the inlet, and then I got to get a water hose adapter. So we went from a 1 inch down to a 3/4 right there, and I'll attach my water hose here. Alright, I was filling up a water bottle and walked down here to the pond, and as I was filling it up, I'm almost 100% sure I saw some tadpoles in that grass right there. You see one right there on that white spot. Let's see if he's still alive. Yep. So we got the toads in here already. Alright, the next step, fill the pump up with some pond water so we don't dry run it. Alright, got everything set up. Last thing we got to do is drop the hose into the pond and turn the pump on. Turn it on. Gotta love it when a plan comes together. It's crazy to think that it's kind of hard to move water from right there to right there, but that little pump worked out perfect, and now we should have green grass growing on our dam and the island. But having a portable powerhouse out on a farm, and that's literally what they call it, a powerhouse, having one of those on a farm is key when you don't have power everywhere. So I highly recommend it. I'll put a link down in the description if you're interested in getting one. So when I pulled up to the farm today, I saw some commotion out in the pond, and I'm happy to say we finally got our first pair of wild ducks at the pond. I'm definitely not an expert, but I believe these are buffleheads. And they're basically just a diving duck that do most of their eating underwater. And when they're in saltwater, they eat things like shrimp and crabs. And in freshwater, they'll eat a little bit of vegetation and things like dragonfly larvae. But unfortunately, they're probably not too happy with me because this pond is basically empty and there's not going to be a lot of food here for them. But this will definitely be a good experiment because, as you all know, we've got our own pet ducks that we were thinking about releasing, but we have so many predators with the coyotes, bobcats, owls, and hawks. So I'm really interested to see a couple things. If the ducks hang around or get ran off by the predators. And I'd also love to know if they're going to use that duck box we built on the island. I think it's a little bit too big for them, but these particular ducks only nest in cavities, so it may be the best option around. But they've been really fun to watch. They do a lot of diving. That's why I can't wait to get our underwater cameras set up. But I think that would be a cool video, watching a duck dive down to see what he's doing. So I set the camera up so we could watch them all the way to dark to see where they went to sleep at. Some ducks sleep in puddles and marsh areas, and others fly up into the woods. But unfortunately, this pair of ducks went right outside of the frame just before dark. So I didn't find out tonight, but we are going to keep up with them and hopefully give you an update on the ducks in the next video. So we got a good water source. Now let's talk about the grass. So we're going to plant the winter ryegrass. Hopefully that'll hold us over, but we have had some erosion down in areas. So my plan B, if the winter rye doesn't take really well, is to come through and hydro seed. And that's basically where they just spray this sticky mulch material that has a bunch of different seeds in it, and it's designed to work on slopes. They use it a lot on the side of highways. So if any of you have experience with hydro seed in a pond dam, leave me a comment down below. Let me know if that worked out for you, because the big issue is that the warm season grass, like the bahia grass, the seeds just take forever to sprout, and we have a lot of sandy material. So if we get those heavy rains like we do down here, that sand's going to wash away and create a lot of bad erosion. So I'm thinking that hydro seeding may be the way to go. But while I'm right here in this area, let me show you who showed back up yesterday. So if you guys watched the last video, you saw this fawn that came up to drink out of the pond. Still got spots. And he got really close to me, only about 20 yards away, and he didn't really seem scared of me at all. So I fed him a little bit of corn, and I just assumed that he had lost his mom. And I was doing some work in the shed today, and guess who came back? This little guy that I'm calling Spot, because he's still got spots. And he's a friendly little deer. I think he enjoyed that apple corn I gave him last time. And you can tell it looks like he's a little bit hungry. He's smelling right there around that grill area. But that's definitely one of the things I love about this farm and pond. It brings all the wildlife in, and this is just one of those crazy wildlife experiences that you don't get to see that often. Then we got us a new pet. He came back out here to see me. I was hanging out here in the shed, and he walked right up. I know he's probably just looking for his mom, but I'm gonna have to go get him some corn and feed him real quick. But he went over and took a drink out of the pond. And then eventually eased off the backside of the pond dam. And you guys can let me know what you think, but I think that Spot finally caught back up with his mom. So the first doe that comes through right here has a couple of fawns follow behind her, but I don't think that that's Spot. But the next doe that comes through also has a couple of them, but you can see the small deer in the back that's got that brown coat. I believe that's him, and when he turns at a different angle, you can still see the spots there on his back. But either way, even if this isn't his mom, it seems like she's taking him in. So that's perfect, because what I'm about to show you next is probably the reason that they got split up in the first place. So later that night, the mom and little one came running across the field, and usually there's something right behind them. And it was the coyote. But thankfully he didn't get the little one, because he came right back through. And I'll have to say, that's the first time I've ever seen a coyote hike his leg and pee. You never know what you're going to see. But folks, leave me your comments down below on what you think I should do. Some people have said in the past that it's my responsibility to get the coyotes out of here and I should trap them and remove them. And so far, I've just let nature take its place and left everything alone. But leave a comment down below if you think I should try to get the coyotes removed or just leave everything alone. And with all this commotion going on, The skunk that we call Pepe Le Pew had to come over and check it out. And maybe even marked his own spot. But I love watching him walk around with his tail up in the air. I brought Milo out to the farm today. He don't get to come out here much. Ducks are checking him out. Not sure what to think about a dog, especially a little white dog.
Our girl duck is turning into a boy.
Liz made a mistake, and she admits it now.
Well, I just don't understand because her beak still looks like a girl.
Yeah, I know. Beak looks like a girl, everything else starting to look like a boy. Alright, so here's the backstory on the ducks. We initially just got a pair of them that we call Allie and Bam Bam, one male and one female. Well, a lot of you commented and said that you should never just have one female with a male because they get so aggressive during breeding season that you should always at least have a couple of mallard hens. So Liz talked to a guy that was giving his female duck away, and we thought it was going to be a perfect fit, and you can see that's the duck inside the pen the day that we got it. And again, we're no duck experts, but typically a mallard drake has a green head with a white ring around it, a brown chest, and some gray feathers. And another key feature is it has a yellow beak with no markings on it. And the key features for the female mallard hen are light brown feathers and usually have a different colored beak, and it also has some black markings on it. That's usually one of the giveaways that it is a female. And one of the other key features is the black line on its head right behind its eye. So you can see when we first got the new duck, it had a lot of female features. And the tricky part is whenever they first hatch, they're all the same color, so you can't tell if they're going to be male or female until they start developing those traits. Well, when we first got our duck, it had a lot of the female traits. The dark line behind the eye, the extra coloration on the beak, and the colors on the feathers were a little bit hard to tell. But it only took about a week to 2 weeks to start seeing those male characteristics develop. It started getting the green head and the white ring around its neck. So we were obviously confused, but we had a couple people tell us that ducks can change their gender. And this usually happens when a female duck loses one of her ovaries. She then transitions into a male duck. But the interesting fact is the ducks can go from female to male, but never from male to female. So I'm kind of thinking that that's what happened in this situation. But either way, we're kind of in a tough spot because we definitely can't have two male ducks and only one female. So I've basically got two options. I can watch those wild ducks in the pond and see if they survive the predators and potentially release one of the male ducks into the pond, or either give the new male duck away. So leave your comments down below if you think I should keep him for a couple weeks and see how things play out, or just go ahead and find him a new home. So here's a quick look at some of the deer cams. We've definitely gotten a lot more activity once the cooler weather moved in. It is nice to see them all hanging out around the pond. And there's a lot going on in this shot. So you can see the owl that we call Al Capone is sitting on top of the tractor, which I love because he's on mice duty, protecting my tractor wires. And then we also have some bucks fighting back there in the background. That's definitely not something you see every day. Alright, now it's time to feed Mr. Moby. And one of the things you'll notice in these feeding clips once it starts getting cooler in the year is that when we put the shiners in, they'll go straight down to the bottom. And that's because we get these out of our backyard pond, and in the cooler months of the year they hang out on the bottom. So we won't be getting as many of those big blow-ups from Moby this winter, but it is fun to watch him whenever they're down low because he's flying around and he usually eats about as many rocks as he does golden shiners. Alright folks, that is going to wrap up this video, but make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're right here at the end of the pond build and a lot of exciting things coming like adding the fish. But I hope you all enjoyed this video and we will see you all next time.